Okay, this screencast is a brief summary of getting images ready for the internet, scaling them and optimizing them, and what your options are. Now we'll go back in time and look at how things used to be done when it came to GIFs. Now if we go to the image menu in Photoshop and we go mode, we'll go to index color. And what index color is restricting its palette. Now originally when GIFs were invented, the internet was very slow, image was very large, and how to cut down the size of an image was by breaking down its color palette. Also GIFs that were limited to how much colors they could show in any case. Now we'll try and emulate how they would have looked if we go up to where it's got the palette at the top and we change that to web. Now what happened with the web palette, it is the common colors that all operating systems use, like Apple, Unix, Windows, and it came to 217. Now it's locked there and restricted to that. Now you'll see there has been some change in the image. There's some dots on there, but mostly it's sort of retained its quality on there. But if we go to where it's got diver, and if I click on diffusion and take it to none, you will actually see it'll block out. And basically without this sort of screen over the top, it's like a printed screen, it will block out with the color. Now out of the three, diffusion is probably the best. But if we go to pattern, we'll see it'll put a pattern over all of it, and you'll see it'll even on the background. Noise, again, not ideal. So the diffusion was probably the best out of those three. But again, not ideal. You can see it in the background and looks like it's been broken into dots. Now if I turn that off, we'll look at a more straightforward way of optimizing an image and getting it ready. Now ideally you would scale your image to the size you want it to be, or now in responsive design you may save a number of different size versions, such as one for low res and one for high res, what they usually call ×2 or ×1 images. So you might have a number of different images for a number of different sizes and widths. Some people have several in there, and that will be called up in the script. Many moons ago, when the internet was first around, you just create one image at a set size. Now, we know that if you scale an image, it will lose quality. So if you're scaling an image in Photoshop and making it bigger and adding pixels, it will degrade in quality. And the same thing will happen with the browser. If you're stretched out on a larger screen or making the image bigger, it will lose quality. Now we'll just have a go at the Save for Web function. So if we go to File, we go to Save for Web. Now once we're in here, you'll see for the Save for Web has the original, and that's in the original where it's got the tab at the top. It'll have the Optimize, and probably more useful would be the 2-up. You can go for 4-up if you want to have lots of different versions, but we'll just go for 2-up. Now it should have the hand selected, and we can probably move it around so it has a certain portion on there that we want to analyze the two, or you can take it down in the percentage so you see the whole image. But usually ideally the best bet will keep it 100% and move it around so you can see what you're losing out of the image. Now this image here on the left is the original, and the image on the right is what it's sort of generating it out as. So here we got it selected a GIF. Now if we go up at the top here on the right, we click on GIF and you will see a number of different options. Now you have the GIF option, and bear in mind that the GIF can only save a color palette of 256 colors. Sometimes GIFs can be very crude, and especially if you're using them in modern website design, if you're having transparencies or you have things in shadow detail or anything like that, GIFs tend to be less sophisticated and have poorer results. Now another format is the JPEG, and the JPEG again is just for saving continuous tone images. Ideally, you'd normally use a JPEG for just photographs, and ideally if you're going to use a GIF, you would use it for graphic elements, things that have solid blocks of color rather than continuous tone. So JPEG for continuous tone. Now PNG, and it has PNG 8, which means it's 8-bit bit depth, the amount of colours it's saved in. Now the PNG 8, similar to the GIF, it saves 256 colours. Although how it works those colours is a little bit better. So if you have something and you want to save it, ideally you've got something on a transparent background, or you're saving graphics for touchscreen devices or most modern design, you're probably better going for a PNG. It was one time that browsers weren't compatible with it, so you would have a problem there. That's a little bit better nowadays with a lot of modern browsers. Now you still restrict to 256 colours, so how it handles things might be quite similar to a GIF, slightly a bit better, but then it has the PNG 28 again, similar to the PNG 8, but this can save 16 million colours. Now that's similar to the effects you would get with a JPEG, and also it preserves transparency. So this means it's a better option if you're going to save images and you don't want to lose any quality in them, or you certainly have any shadow detail, like you don't want that to block out. Go for a PNG 24. Now the only issue, again, you may have browser compatibilities, and also these files will be a lot larger. So we'll just go for the GIF and we'll see what happens. Now what you would do here is you would reduce colours. At the bottom it tells you how many colours in there, 256. Now down here it's got the size it is, and if we look over on the original is 2.32 megabytes. Now this one, now it's been converted into a GIF, is only 225k, so obviously it's a fraction of the size. Now it will give you download times and a little button here, and this will give you a number of different modems, and it will emulate how long it would take to download. Now a lot of these are pretty much out of date. If you see, it goes really way back, so it's got a 9600 modem, and when you come, certainly right up here, you've got 2 megabits, so basically pretty outmoded, so it might give you a good idea, but the best way of doing it is leave it on what would have been a 56k modem. Now that'll just give you a good idea. It's sort of a lowest common denominator, so if it's not taking hours to download, then you're on the right track, but probably just leave it on there. These days you may not need to pay too much attention, but only if it's incredibly high. If you set it on that and you find it out it's taken a long time, then that's going to be a problem. So ideally what you're trying to do is get the best quality at the lowest file size. So all you would do with a GIF is take colours out. So where it's got colours up at the top, if I go down and go to 4 colours, you'll see it takes all of it out. That's not working. So if we go to something like 8 colours, you'll see there's some detail there. And then if we go to 16 colours, you'll see it's coming up. So basically you see it's blocking out, as we had before, into dots. We've got a diffusion on it. You can take the diffusion off as we did before, or you can put it back on. Now it's saying the size. So ideally you just keep on going up until you get the most acceptable file quality or image quality at the smallest file size and the quickest download. So that's what you do. It's a process of elimination. Now you can turn transparency on and off if you wanted to. Sometimes in some images you will see a knockdown in the file size and also speed, which nothing has happened there, so that's fine. Now once you're happy with that, you would click save and you would save a copy. Now the other thing you can do is press on preview, and it'll come up and preview that image, what it would look like actually in the browser. If you scroll up, it's got some information about it. If you wanted to print that off or keep it, it gives you all the background information to that. Now I'll close that down, and we'll look about if we were saving it as a JPEG. JPEG's a little bit different, that it retains its amounts of colour, but all you do is take the quality down. Now if we take the quality and we move it all the way down and we put it on 0, you'll see the classic case of what happens with a JPEG. It squeezed it down in file size. You'll see the file size is only 17k, whereas the original was over 2 megabytes, but the quality has gone down. So all you would do is slowly move it up until again you're comparing the two and getting the best quality. You might also want to zoom in and take a section of the image, and again as you're zooming the quality up and down, you're coming along and seeing what the quality is. Now as you zoom in, you'll probably see pixels in there which might distract you, so always probably, if you can get away with it, do it at 100%. Now when you're happy with the file size and the image quality, again you would press save and you're done. Now another one would be the PNG, and again with the PNG you're taking colors out, which you'll see here it's got 256, so you can reduce the amount of colors. Now if I change that and go to the PNG 24, and once you've done that, you'll see it just doesn't give you an option for reducing colors because it has a greater color palette, very similar to how the JPEG works. But if you come down to the bottom, you'll see this is only 500K in size, whereas the original was over 2 megabytes. Again, the size also matters. You can scale the size and that will make the file size of the image larger or smaller. Ideally, the best way of scaling an image would be to do it in the Photoshop from the image menu and do the same thing rather than doing it in here, but you can do it in here and take the size down. You can play around with these things. Sometimes nearest neighbor will maybe get you a bit better quality, and if we come here and make it say 500, and again it sort of takes the file size down and scales the image and makes it smaller, but ideally you can scale it before you bring it into save for web. And then when you're happy, hit save, give it a more memorable name. Obviously you've got to make sure if you save things for online use you don't have any gaps in it or in uppercase, and then you save it. We're going to look at images on transparent layers. Now what's happened here, you'll see in Photoshop we have this checkered background, and the checkered background represents transparency, so that's how it is. If it's a color or pure white, then basically it probably isn't transparency. Now you'll see also it's represented over in the layers panel where it says layer 1. So what's happened here, it's been cut out with a selection tool, and then either Control J or Command J if you're on a Windows, and a new layer has been pasted, and then the background layer has been deleted. You always have to delete the background layer once you cut something out and paste it on another layer, because the background layer in Photoshop is never transparent. Now once we've done that, we're going to go back as we did before. We're going to go to File menu and we're going to go down and Save for Web. Now when it comes up again, we're doing the 2-up. We've got it 100%, and first one we'll go and see what happens if we change this to a JPEG. When we are on a JPEG, you'll see it goes solid white, and the reason it goes solid white is that it doesn't support transparency. So basically that's, if you want to support transparency, you'd use either a GIF or a PNG. Now there is a way around it which is not a good idea. So say for example we're going to put it on a background, and maybe in our web page we know what the hexadecimal value of the color is for the background. What we can do is put a matte on it. So here we are, it's got matte, and we go up here and we can go for something like other, and you can certainly input your hexadecimal value here, or you would pick the color, and once you've got that and you're happy with it, you click OK. Now what it does, it matches that color to the background. Now this is not ideal because it, depending on different monitors, it will appear different. So what you'll have is the camera on say a dark red background, and then you'll probably find the background of the page maybe a slightly different shade. So that's not the best thing to do. So if you are wanting to save something on a transparent background, don't use a JPEG. Now I'll go for the first one, which is a GIF. Now GIFs, again, quite a basic format. As we've seen before, you add and subtract colors. Now here, mostly it's sort of grey and black, this image, so you can get away with knocking the colours down. Now what you would do is reduce it until the quality is you're happy with the quality and it sort of matches what the original is. So if I go up here, you can also, as we did before, zoom in and you can see how much you're losing. Here we've got it 32 colours and that's not too bad. Now what you can have when you have a GIF that's on a transparent background and you put it on a page with a colour, you find that sometimes there's a little bit of a rough edge, there's a bit of a halo around it of pixels. Now you can also put a matte around a transparent image in either as a GIF format or a PNG. Bit different than the JPEG, it doesn't put it in the whole background, it just does it around the edge and just gets it to blend. Make sure you've got transparency switched on. I'll just turn it off. You see it's solid if it's not on there, so you click it on, you've got the checkered background. I'll go to matte. And again, I'll just go down to other and I'll just select the colour as I did before. Now once I've done that, select the colour and I click OK, you'll see there's a little bit of a line around it. If I just blow that up, you'll see there's a line that goes all the way around that's red around the edge of your picture. You've got to look at how you select it. This is a bit of a dodgy selection here, so it's got a little bit of rubbish down the bottom. But ideally, if it's been properly cut out, it'll put an edge around it. And when we put that on, say, a page or a box that is the same colour, it'll sort of blend in with the background and won't have this halo around. That's what a matte does. That can be quite important. I'll turn that off and we'll just go in and do that as a PNG. Again, you can put the a matte on there with a PNG. Does the same thing. And then finally we do a PNG 24. Again, we've got that. And you'll see it won't allow you to put the matte on. So how it works, it's more colours, so it'll probably blend in a little bit better. Okay, we're going to look at how to create an SVG. Now an SVG is a scalable file, it's vector based, and the issue is that you might have browser compatibility issues if you use an SVG. Ideally, it's the way to go forward as time goes by, especially not necessarily for continuous tone images like photographs because they are better containing pixels, but what they're useful for is graphic elements such as banners, logos, buttons, things to do with that can be scalable. And what happens is they can scale as a vector graphics would do, and it doesn't lose quality. You can get plugins. Here's one here that you can download free. Basically, you just search the internet and find them. And these plugins are Photoshop, which will help you output a vector-based graphic. Now, as Photoshop is mainly a bitmap program, your probably best place would be to do it in Illustrator. Create a new Illustrator document. Now, if Illustrator has print sizes, then it has web sizes, and also it has device sizes if you want to do any of those. If I go on the web sizes, you can actually say how big you want it in pixels. You can change the pixel dimensions here. So I'll just go for the smallest, which is 640 by 480, and then I click OK to that. Now once I've got that, I'll just quickly do some graphics on here. Needs to be scalable, so I'm just going to use some text and I'm going to just use a shape in the background. So I'll go and create a shape, just create a colour on there. I'll get a bit of red and then I'll put a stroke on it, just have basically a black stroke, and then I'll just drag out the shape, just take that stroke up, make it a bit bigger. And then once I've done that, I'm going to just get some text. I'll just drag out here anywhere. I'll take my font up a bit to begin with, and I'll just type in hello. Once I've got that, I'll just change its colour so it blends in. So it contrasts. I'll bring the edge of my box in, and I'll just basically take my font size up a bit. Just drag that out. Okay, so basically I've got my graphic on there. So I've got my graphic on there. I'll just make that a little bit bigger. And there you go. I've made the graphic. Now it's important that it doesn't contain any bitmap information. If I was to bring in a photograph in there, you wouldn't really then output that as an SVG because it contains pixels and it'll lose quality. But as text and the shapes are graphic files and they're done in vector using paths, then it will be scalable. Once I've done that, if we noticed before, we can actually bring in our artboard to hug the edge, and the artboard tool, almost down the bottom there, artboard tool, you click on that, and all it does, it allows to bring in the edge. You probably might want to make sure it's all even when you bring it in to say the sizes and make sure it's all in the center. But ideally, what you don't want to do is have a very large artboard with a very small graphic element in the center. Now, once that's been done, we're ready to export it. Ideally, you would save it as an Illustrator file to begin with, as house rules, and then once you've saved it, once you're ready, you go to the File menu and you go to Scripts. Now, if you go down, there's a number of different scripts on there, but there's a script for saving docs as SVG. Now, if we click on there, we need to basically find a location where you want to save it. And then it should output it, tell you it's been saved. Now if we go to our desktop, we will see here it's got our SVG file, so it's been saved. Now if I open up a browser, in this case it's Chrome, and I just drop it in there it is, it's inside there as it would appear if it's on a web page. Now if I zoom in on the browser, I'll just zoom in, if I keep on zooming in, you'll find as I go in, I've got up here and it's stopped me at 500%, if I sort of move around there, you'll see that the quality is really good. It's scaled it all the way up 500%. Now we're going to see what happens, let's take it down to 100, if for example this was saved as a JPEG, what would happen then? Okay, we're going to try this with the JPEG. It's exactly the same size as the SVG image, and we'll drag it and we'll drop it. Now we put it inside the browser, and again it's Chrome as we did before, and we zoom in and we keep on zooming in until we go to the limit. On here it's 500%. So if you look on here now, you'll see a really big difference in the quality. You'll see it's gone quite mushy and it's lost definition around the edge. If we go and do the other one, and again we take that back up and we can do a like for like comparison, you will see there is a big difference between those two images. Here we have the JPEG scaled to 500% in the browser, and here we have the SVG. Now that's obviously the way forward, certainly for graphic type elements. This wouldn't work with a photograph. You'd probably have to do responsive design with calling up different size versions in a script, or using markup maybe in HTML5. But this is probably a good way of having the scalable graphic, just one image that can be scaled to any size basically on any device. Of exporting your file as an SVG, you can just go up to the File menu in Illustrator and go Save As. Now when you go down, you'll find you've got right at the bottom SVG. You click on that and you click OK. I've already got one called that, so that's why it's come up with Replace. I'll replace it. This is a little bit different, whereas before we did it on a preset script. Now there's lots and lots of different profiles which you might want to test out, but I'm just going to stick with this default 1.1. Now it gives you some options down the bottom. If you look down here, it's got more options with which it expands on it. These things may be useful. Also, it's got SVG code. Now if you click on that, it opens up and here I'm using a Mac, and basically obviously it's opened up in a text editor. Now this is basically all the information programmatically. So basically this is a case of cutting and pasting this and incorporating this into your web design. That's how it works. So that's just all the information basically that makes that element work. All the plots come down here. Then we've got a little globe on here. If we click on that, it opens it up in the browser and gives us a preview of what it would look like. When I drag the window in, you'll see it will expand and contract and scale without losing any quality. That's quite good. I'll just close that down. Obviously, when you're happy with all those things and whatever you want to do, you might want to do it with the code programmatically and use that later on. It's got information there to embed or link, but I can just go, let's click on that, and then I can click OK, and then it's saved that file.